You are not born into beauty. You are born into usefulness. That is the distinction your mother makes when she braids your hair each morning in the farmhouse outside Osaka. Beauty is for women with options. Usefulness is for women like you, the second daughter of a rice merchant whose ledgers have been bleeding since before you learned to read them. The year is 1869. The emperor has just returned to power. The samurai are restless. The country is cracking itself open like an egg, and nobody knows what will crawl out. Change is in the air the way smoke is. You can smell it before you understand what is burning. You grow up understanding the new Japan the way countryside children always understand capital ideas. In fragments, you hear the word civilization the way you hear thunder, distant, inevitable, something coming that you cannot stop. Your father reads the government newspapers out loud at dinner and argues with them as though the paper can hear him. Your mother does not argue. She works. You watch her work and understand this is what women do. They absorb. They endure. They make the household run so that men can have opinions. By 14, you can manage a household account, negotiate with a silk vendor, and cook rice without being told twice. You are not unhappy exactly. You are simply efficient in a life that was designed to use you up. Then your father's merchant partner defaults on a debt. The numbers collapse overnight. The ledgers your father has been managing for 20 years become the evidence of his ruin. He does not speak for 3 days. Your mother cooks the same meals and pretends not to notice his silence. You notice. You are always the one who notices. A solution is proposed. Not to you. About you. There is a man. He performs in the Hanamachi. Not a Geiko, something adjacent to that world but entirely different. He is a Hōkan, a male entertainer. A jester philosopher, a professional wit, a man who makes powerful people laugh so that they keep paying for the privilege. His name is Takeda Kichinasuk. He is 32 years old, slightly built, with a face that rearranges itself so quickly between expressions that you can never quite catch what he actually feels. He needs a wife. More precisely, he needs a woman who can manage his accounts, maintain his household, represent his name at the right occasions, and understand, without being told and without complaint, the specific architecture of a life lived entirely in service to other people's pleasure. Your father presents this to you as an opportunity. You are 17 years old. You say yes because saying no requires options you do not have. The first time you meet Kichinasuk properly, he is performing. You are taken to an ozashiki, a banquet room in a tea house in the Shinmachi district of Osaka. The room smells of lacquered wood and sake and something sweet underneath it that you cannot name. Lanterns throw orange light across the walls. Men in formal haori sit on cushions around a low table enormous, with food and drink. Geiko move between them like water. Silent, precise, smiling. And then there is him. He enters on his knees. Deliberately. Comically low, shuffling across the floor to roars offwater that seem to have been waiting for him. He wears an elaborate kimono, too decorated, too colorful, the sash tied in a deliberately ridiculous way. His face is painted, but not the way Geiko paint. His is exaggerated, absurd, one eyebrow higher than the other. A beauty mark in entirely the wrong place. He carries a fan and uses it to punctuate every sentence, every pause, every punchline. He is magnificent, not handsome, not powerful. Magnificent in the way a fire is magnificent, consuming whatever it touches and making it briefly, beautifully warm. For the next hour, he works the room like a craftsman works a piece of wood. He reads each man, their vanity, their insecurities, their hunger to be the most important person in the room, and he feeds each one exactly what they need. He flatters the minister by pretending to misquote him correctly. He makes the merchant feel clever by asking a question the merchant already knows the answer to. He tells a story that is somehow simultaneously about a traveling monk, a broken sandal, and the current state of imperial taxation, and the room convulses. You watch from behind a screen where you have been placed to observe. Your chaperone says, "Well?" You say, "He's the loneliest person in the room." She blinks. She was expecting you to comment on his income. You are right, of course. You just don't know yet what that will cost you. The marriage is arranged with the efficiency of a business transaction, because that is what it is. A go-between carries documents. Gifts are exchanged. Your mother packs your things into two-lacquered trunks and holds your face in her hands for a long time before she lets go. She does not say, "I'm sorry." She says, "Learn to read the silences. You will understand later." Everything your mother says, you understand later. You move into his house in the Namba district of Osaka. It is not a large house. It is a well-placed house, near the tea houses and the theaters and the specific geography of nightlife that sustains a Hōkan's career. The rooms are cluttered with props. A drum here, a stack offhand painted folding fans there. A collection of wigs on lacquered stands that watch you from the corner of the storage room with blank painted eyes. You begin to learn what you have married. A Hōkan, Taikomochi as they are also called, is not simply a comedian. He is the last professional male entertainer in a tradition stretching back to the courts of feudal lords. He exists to serve the ozashiki, to warm a room before the gaiko arrive, to defuse tension between powerful men, to absorb humiliation gracefully and return it as laughter. He is beaten with fans, splashed with sake, made the butt of jokes he himself has set up, and he accepts all of it because his entire livelihood depends on the patron leaving the evening feeling elevated. The paradox of his life is this: the better he is at his work, the more invisible he becomes. A great Hōkan leaves a room feeling like the room itself was brilliant. You watch him transform every evening before he leaves the house. He sits at his mirror, a real one now, the Western kind, flat and honest, and he paints his face into the other version of himself. He hums while he does it. Not a gaiko's careful ritual, something looser. Self-aware. Like a man putting on armor he knows is made of silk. One evening you ask him, "Does it bother you?" Being the joke. He pauses, brush in hand. He says, "The joke is a container. I choose what goes inside it." You think about this for 3 days. You realize he is the most precise person you have ever met. The early years of the marriage are an education in a language no one teaches you. The language of the hanamachi at night. The language of patrons and their moods. The language of a man who performs intimacy for money and then comes home and doesn't know how to stop. Because this is the thing about Kachinosuk that no one in the arrangement mentioned. He is extraordinary at making other people feel seen. He has spent 20 years cultivating this skill to surgical precision. He reads desire, insecurity, loneliness, pride, reads it in the set of a man's shoulders, in the way he holds his cup, in what he laughs at and what he doesn't. And then he comes home, and the skill is still running. And sometimes he deploys it on you without meaning to, laughs at the right moment, deflects a difficult question with perfect comic timing, makes you feel heard without ever actually letting you in. It takes you 2 years to name this. You are sitting across from him at dinner one evening and you say, "You're performing right now." He puts down his chopsticks. Long silence. "Yes," he says. "I don't always know when I'm doing it." This is the first honest thing he has ever said to you. You stay at the table for a long time after that. Not fighting. Just sitting with it. The way you sit with something true that doesn't have a solution. This is also when you begin to love him. Not before. After. The Meiji era does not move quietly around you. It crashes. By the 1870s, the government is dismantling everything the old Japan built. Samurai lose their stipends. The caste system is abolished on paper. Western suits appear on ministry officials in Tokyo. A new postal system. A new calendar. Gas lamps in the streets of Ginza that make night look like something it never was before. And the hanamachi adapts. It always adapts. But the current beneath it is changing. The new patrons are different men. Not samurai. Not feudal lords. Businessmen. Industrialists. Men who made money from the confusion of modernization and now want the aesthetic of tradition to legitimize them. They come to the ozashiki in western-cut trousers and leave their shoes at door and drink sake and watch the gaiko dance and pay for Kachinosuk's wit and go home feeling like they have touched something ancient and dignified. He navigates this with extraordinary skill. You watch him calibrate himself in real time. He adds new material, jokes about the railroad, about men who wear boots inside, about the Western word for umbrella said badly in Japanese. He keeps the old stories for the older patrons who need to feel that something hasn't changed. He is a living interface between two Japans, and he manages it every single night. At home, with you, he is quieter than his public self in every way. He eats simply. He sleeps deeply. He does not perform at the breakfast table. These are, you understand, the most intimate things he gives you. The silence, the stillness, the version of himself that does not need an audience. You build a life inside that silence. It is not the life you imagined at 17. It is more complicated and more real than anything you were capable of imagining at 17. The children come. 2 sons, 1 daughter. The sons are named for seasons. The daughter is named Fumi. Writing, character, story. Because by the time she is born you have decided that she will own her own narrative if you have to build that ownership yourself with both hands. Kichinisuke is a strange father. Not absent. Strange. He plays with the children the way He plays the ozashiki, with total, focused, generating attention that makes each child feel like the most interesting person alive. He invents voices for their toys. He turns dinner into theater. He teaches the boys to read a room before they can read a book. You watch this and you feel 2 things simultaneously. You feel love for this man, who can make your daughter laugh until she forgets she was crying. And you feel grief, low and persistent, because you understand that this ability to make people feel illuminated is also the thing that is not yours alone. Every patron in every ozashiki in Osaka also gets it, pays for it, takes it home with them. You never say this out loud. You are your mother's daughter. You absorb. You tend. You make the household run. But one evening when the children are asleep and he is at the mirror with his paint, you sit behind him and watch his reflection and say, "Do you ever want a life where no one is watching?" He looks at you in the mirror for a long time. He says, "I want this. Right now. This is the one." You believe him. You also know it is the best answer a man like him can give, and that the best answer and the whole truth are not always the same thing. You stay anyway, because love, you have learned, is not the absence of complication. It is the decision to remain inside it. The 1880s brings something you did not anticipate. Visibility. A Western journalist passes through Osaka. He is writing about the entertainments of Japan for a foreign magazine, something about exotic customs, something that will be read in London or New York by people who will use the word Oriental as though it is a compliment. He attends Sand Ozashiki. He sees Kichinisuke perform. He wants to write about him. Kichinisuke is cautious. You are more cautious. You understand what Western attention means. It takes the thing it finds interesting and makes it a specimen. It puts it in a box. It labels the box with a word that will never quite fit. But the article appears. It describes your husband as the last court jester of old Japan, a relic of the feudal world maintained with curious precision by a society simultaneously desperate to modernize and terrified of forgetting itself. The word relic lands in the Osaka Hanamachi like a stone dropped in still water. Some patrons send extra gifts, tokens of appreciation for something they have suddenly been told is disappearing. Others, the modernizers, the ministry men, quietly stop requesting him. Associating with a relic is, in the new Meiji calculus, not the social capital it once was. You watch the guest list shift. You manage the household accounts with increasing precision, finding ways to stretch what comes in because what comes in is no longer what it was. He does not mention the article after the first week. But you notice he works harder, stays out later, returns quieter than before. One night he sits at the kitchen table and does not reach for his paint. He just sits there. You make tea. You sit across from him. You do not ask him to perform for you. You do not ask him to be fine. You just sit with him in the way that is the specific love language of people who have survived things together. After a long time he says, "I don't know what I am outside of the room." You say, "You are the person sitting at this table drinking tea with me." He looks at you. He says, "How are you not afraid of that answer?" You say, "Because I've been building a life around it for 12 years. The 1890s. The children are growing. Fumi learns to read with the hunger of someone who was told once, by a careless teacher, that girls need not bother. She is bothering with extraordinary focus. The boys apprentice into trades. The household finds a new, smaller shape. The Hanamachi is also finding a new shape. Younger Hōkan appear, trained in the new style, incorporating Western jokes, performing for a clientele that thinks tradition is a costume you wear to dinner rather than a discipline you practice for decades. They are funny and fast and modern, and they do not carry the specific gravity of a man who learned this art before Japan decided art was something you could also buy in a catalog from Paris. Kachinasuk still works. But the rooms are different. The patrons are younger. They laugh at this old stories with a slightly patronizing appreciation of people encountering something they have been told is valuable. Museum appreciation. The kind that keeps a respectful distance. He adapts. He always adapts. But adaptation at 50 has a different quality than adaptation at 30. You see it in the evenings at the mirror. The paint takes longer. The reflection holds his gaze in a way it didn't before. He is negotiating with something in that glass that has nothing to do with the eyebrow. You sit behind him as you always do. You do not say, "The young ones are better." You do not say, "It's changing." He knows all of this. You say, "Tell me a story." He blinks, looks at you in the mirror. Which one? The one about the monk and the broken sandal. He pauses. Then the face begins to shift, not into the performance mask, into something older and quieter. A version of the story told to one person, without the fan, without the painted eyebrow, without the room to read. He tells it to you. Just you. It is the best performance you have ever seen. Because it is not a performance. You are 43 when Kachinasuk retires from the Ozashiki. Not suddenly. Gradually, the way all real endings come. Not as a door slamming, but as a light slowly going out in a room you didn't know you were still depending on. The Namba house is quieter. Fumi is married now, to a schoolteacher who encourages her to read what she likes. The boys send money regularly. You tend the household, a smaller one, a slower one, with the same precision you brought to it at 17. He sits with you more. He helps in the garden. He learns, late in life and with enormous comedic commentary, how to cook rice without burning it. He talks to the neighbors' children when they come to the gate and makes them laugh with a fraction of the effort that used to require a full evening's work. One afternoon you are sitting together on the engawa, the narrow wooden veranda, watching the light change over the garden. He is quiet. You are quiet. This is something you have both become very good at. He says, "I never thanked you." You look at him. He says, "For seeing the real one, when everyone else was watching the other one." You think about the 17-year-old girl behind the screen. The one who said, "He's the loneliest person in the room." You think about what it cost to be right about that. The years of learning to love someone who was professionally practiced at keeping people close while remaining just beyond reach. The patience. The persistence. The specific discipline of building a life with a man who only learned to fully arrive in it somewhere in his late 40s. You say, "You are worth figuring out." He is quiet for a moment. Then he says, "The monk and the broken sandal." You look at him. "What about it?" He says, "The real ending, the one I never told in the Ozashiki, is that he didn't fix the sandal. He just walked differently. And eventually the walk became natural. And he forgot the sandal was ever broken." A long silence. "I've been telling that story for 30 years, he says. "You're the only one I ever told the ending to." The light shifts over the garden. A crow calls from somewhere in the plum tree. You reach over and take his hand. You have been taking his hand since you were 17. It has always meant the same thing. I am here. I am not leaving. Whatever this is, the performance, the silence, the loneliness underneath the laughter, the man at the kitchen table without his paint, I am here for a Lafit. That is the story. Not the festivals. Not the lanterns. Not the lacquered teahouses full of important men. Not the journalist who called him a relic or the ledgers you balanced for 30 years or the Meiji government rewriting every rule the moment you had learned the old ones. The story is the hand. The story is you saw the real one first. And you stayed. And of all the rooms Kachinasuk Takeda ever performed in, and there were hundreds, in Osaka and Kyoto and Tokyo, for samurai and ministers and industrialists and foreign journalists, and every kind of powerful man Japan could produce in that cracking open century, the one he was most himself in was yours. That's not a small thing. That's the whole thing.